Hi, my name is Lindsay Schmidt. I'm a consultant at Kapur and a member of our Smart Cities team. On behalf of our whole team, I want to welcome you to Kapur's Smart Cities webinar series. So what is a smart city? Some might define a smart city as an urban area that uses an electronic Internet of Things and sensors to collect data. Insights gained from that data are used to manage assets, resources, and services efficiently. In return, that data is used to improve the operations across a city. With this webinar series, we hope to help educate and inform local government staff and officials about the use of smart cities technologies. We want to begin a dialogue about this topic and answer questions like, what do we see happening today? What do these applications look like and how do they perform? And lastly, what does the future of a smart city look like? We also want to be a resource to help local leaders see where the opportunities are for you to apply smart cities technologies in your communities. Where is it cost effective and where may it be required for regulatory compliance in the future? If you work for a city, we know that you need to look to the future and plan for investments in your communities and educate yourselves on emerging technologies in order to become more efficient. We want to help introduce you to some new ideas, concepts, and technologies so that you can fully optimize your operations. If you're an elected official, we want to help you see the ways in which technology is developing and the value it can add to your community to both enhance the delivery of constituent services as well as help make those services more affordable. In an era of increasing pressure on local government finances, we understand efficiency is of the utmost importance. Smart cities require the marriage of data collection, sensors, and infrastructures. All type of local infrastructure, including drinking water, water reclamation, transportation, waste disposal, energy, and communications can be impacted and improved through the adoption of these technologies. Investments can be optimized for performance and financed through the effective use of smart cities technologies. Through this series, we hope to help you and your community find the best opportunities to integrate sensors with your infrastructure and to help develop as a smart city.
Hello, and welcome to today's third in a series of Kapur Smart City webinars. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is how can smart cities technology help improve pedestrian safety in our cities? My name is Tim Anhauser. I have 35 years of experience here at Kapur in the design and construction management of public infrastructure. At Kapur, we have over 40 years of experience in planning, design, and construction management of pedestrian facilities, including having provided these services to local and state agencies across Wisconsin. We provided design services for multi-use paths in multiple cities and jurisdictions across the state, with pedestrian safety being at the core of all these projects. With this experience in mind, our staff is knowledgeable about the opportunities and challenges that local agencies face in providing improved pedestrian mobility as well as improved pedestrian safety. You know, from time to time, we're all pedestrians, and really, we're never more vulnerable than when we are pedestrians in our cities today. The Governor's Highway Safety Association did a study, and they found that between 2008 and 2018, the pedestrian fatality rate increased by 53%. That's compared to only a 2% increase in all other traffic deaths. That same study found that in 2018, fully 17% of all pedestrian fatalities, I should say, were pedestrian fatalities. So what can we do to increase the safety of pedestrians in our cities today? Well, that's the purpose of this webinar. We hope we spark your interest. We hope you learn a few things. We hope you find that smart cities technology can be both scalable and affordable in improving pedestrian safety. We'll talk about intersection and mid-block crossings. We'll talk about traditional traffic control devices. We'll talk about using LED enhanced signs for greater visibility. We'll talk about enhanced detection technology for pedestrians. We'll even talk about how smart vehicles had a role to play in improving pedestrian safety. So we hope you enjoy the webinar. We hope you learn a few things. I hope you look for future Kapur Smart City webinars as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Neil Stajka, who is a transportation engineer here at Kapur, and he's going to lead the discussion and introduce the panel. Thank you again for joining us. I hope you enjoy.
Thanks, Tim. As a member of our Smart Cities team, a certified road safety professional, an avid cyclist, and a transportation engineer, I know just how important pedestrian safety is, which is why I'm excited to announce and introduce our partners in this event, TAPCO. Aaron Guilbault from TAPCO will be joining us today to share some of his expertise in finding the right pedestrian safety solutions, some of which are just beginning to emerge. He has been with TAPCO for 15 years, 8 years in his current role, and he specializes in intelligent warning system solutions. Thank you. And now let's get started. Take it away, Aaron.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Today I want to talk a little bit about finding the right pedestrian safety solutions for you and your community. So we'll get right into this. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about TAPCO. Hopefully all of you are familiar with TAPCO and I've been doing my job well, but just in case I haven't, TAPCO really is founded on 4 core strengths, and this is always front and center with us each and every day, from our service, from our expertise, a quality standpoint, and our innovation. So our family is really driven to save lives and just go that extra mile in our communities to enhance in transportation throughout innovative solutions and our quality products that we offer. So today our agenda is going to look a little like this. The introduction here of myself, we'll get into a little bit of overview on some ped safety solutions. We'll get into the national current environment, specific crosswalk solutions, a little bit of the technology component, and some specific safety enhancements as well, and hopefully save a little bit of time at the end for questions. My name is Aaron Guilbault. I'm a senior account executive here at TAPCO. I've been with the company just about 16 years here, and I've had a variety of roles, specifically currently in our IWS, which is our Intelligent Warning Systems group. So there's a lot of challenges that you face, we all encounter, and that's managing the public process. Change can be very difficult for a lot of folks, and that's something that we need to overcome from a transportation aspect as well. Jurisdictional. I talk with many folks, and this is always the kind of front and center. Who owns that road? Do I have to coordinate with the DOT in my area? Do I have to coordinate with the county? And so on and so forth. And lastly, there's a lot of old standards that are out there, and just being, from an education standpoint, letting folks know what their options are, what's out there for them, for solutions and things that they encounter in their day-to-day work. So you can kind of see by the chart here, I won't get into it too much, but things are exploding. Vehicle miles traveled, the amount of vehicles registered, and the amount of drivers in about a 47-year span has just, again, exploded. Our population obviously is increasing as well, which adds to that. And you can see there at the very bottom, only 11% of lane miles. So we're increasing vehicles, we're increasing our population, our drivers, but we're not adding all that many more roads. So it's getting a little bit more congested as the years go by. And you can see in the graph on the right side that in billions, vehicle miles traveled annually. And as of 2016, we're almost up to 3,200 billion miles. So that's pretty extensive. With that, of course, we're getting some additional pedestrian fatalities. So you can see there between 2007 and 2016, we decreased fatalities, traffic fatalities, but those pedestrian deaths increased. You can point to a few different things to see that rise and that difference. Certainly have been a bigger focus to be able to get folks to be more mobile, biking, walking, as opposed to driving. So when we're pulling people off the roadways and putting them into sidewalk or roadways, there's that potential. So you can see 70% occurred at non-intersections, which would be like a mid-block crosswalk. Another 75% occurred during dark hours, especially when we are here in the throes of winter. It's a little bit less light during the day. We get longer periods of darkness. And of course, 76% occurred in urban areas. So over the last 20 years or so, there's been a huge, almost a 45% increase in deaths. So you can see the chart here, just as that steady rise all the way here to 2017. It looks like we're at about 12,000. So we continue to probably see that graph continue on as we get moving forward as well. So TAPCO came out with a little white paper a few months back. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to see this. If not, you can contact us or jot down that link and we can pass it along. A lot of good information in there. We interviewed over 120 traffic engineers and compiled kind of all of their answers to help professionals' questions to protect lives. So why pedestrian fatalities are on the rise, why mid-blocks are dangerous, where are the mid-blocks crossing being used, and what are the different types of solutions that we can implement. So what I thought was really interesting here is there's only about 33% of mid-block crosswalks that have some type of LED safety system. And I think that's just really telling that that's a really major point of focus that we need to pay attention to. As we look back at some of the information that we just shared there, dark hours, mid-block crossing are some of the highest potential for fatalities and incidents. So almost everybody has a driver feedback installed, which is great. And there's almost another 50% that looks like they'll be installing additional within their community. So of all of our folks that we surveyed and contacted, we got almost a 70% percentage of respondents, so which is very great. We want to be able to make sure we got all types of different information and have a nice pool of respondents. So you can see here, just from a small and a medium and a large standpoint, you can see the population differences between the three. And per 10,000 people, you can kind of look at all those mid-block crossings. So where we see probably the largest implementation of mid-block crossing pedestrian systems is with that median city population. So you look at maybe your Madisons here in the state, that would probably fit in with your medium. Large would be a Milwaukee, and small, we're talking about Wauwatosa, Waukesha, some of those other folks as well. So just to give you some context. And here, just another little graph kind of on a national level to kind of show you where a majority of those pedestrian crosswalk systems, or mid-block crosswalks, I should say, are being installed. You see the Northeast, where we have a high density of population. In the Midwest and out West, a little bit more sparse. So you can kind of tell and see there just as a national level. And so with our white paper findings, we noticed and pooled everyone that the LED solution here in the next few years, the plans to be quite a big increase. A very, very small percentage of 1% would be scaling things back a little bit. But you can see a majority of folks tend to pick that up and increase safety. And from a driver feedback standpoint, almost half of the folks over the next 2 years are going to be either remaining the same, or 47% are going to be increasing that. So some very basic and small, very cost-effective ways to increase safety at some of these pedestrian mid-block crossings are yield lines. There's the in-street pedestrian crossing signs, which are readily available from several sources. There's some pinch points. So we're increasing the sidewalk area and narrowing the roadway to give that visible cue for motorists to be able to slow down in that narrowing area. And then, of course, staggering crosswalks, which is a pretty new technology that are being installed. I think we have maybe a few only here in Wisconsin to date, but something that's being more and more talked about with design firms and design engineers. So the FHWA kind of came out with, they call it a spectacular 7, but there's 7 different applications, and one being what we just covered from the in-road crossing signs, just additional fluorescent sheeting on static signage, and just kind of going through some of those types of small, again, economical enhancements to try and increase that pedestrian safety. Another option is to increase the pedestrian refugees islands in the middle of roadways. So you give pedestrians a little break in the action, allow them to cross one lane of traffic instead of crossing two to give them a little bit more time. Studies have shown about a 30% reduction in those crashes when we've installed something of this nature. Relatively low cost. The raised crosswalk is another option. This is a little bit more involved as you're going to have a lot of pavement work to be able to do that. I've seen folks use road tables, speed humps, things of that nature to help slow those vehicles down. So that's about a 45% reduction that we see. Pedestrian hybrid beacons. This is a little bit more cost intensive. It's quite a bit of infrastructure that's needed from a cabinet standpoint, from an LED standpoint. So this is something that we're really seeing on a lot of heavily annually daily traffic areas. There's only a handful of them here in Wisconsin at this point, but certainly is an option. LPI, or leading pedestrian intervals, are another system that would help deter this. So basically, you're giving pedestrians a little advanced start when you have left turning vehicles. There's obviously a pinch point there as vehicles are turning left. Their eyes are focused ahead of them, not necessarily to their left. And when they come around and turn that vehicle, all of a sudden pedestrians are there in the crosswalk. So LPI is another very effective system that folks are starting to implement within their signalized intersections. So, and they've seen about a 13% reduction in those crashes. The RFB, which is a rapid rectangular flashing beacon, is very popular here in Wisconsin. The DOT has been implementing these on several new road projects. Local communities find this as a really cost-effective, yet very effective. As you can see, 47% reduction in crashes with pedestrian safety. So it can be solar powered or can be AC powered, and we'll get into those a little bit more here shortly. So here's a little graph that was put out by the FHWA, and I'll try and get this to folks if they want to see this again, or we can pass this out. But there's a lot of information to digest here in a short clip, but just to give you an idea, so at the top you have your annual daily traffic, and then you have whether it's a 2-lane, a 3-lane, 4-lane, etc. And then it gives you the different options for treatments. So if you look down there, at the very bottom, it kind of states and walks you through whether it's a raised crosswalk, whether it's curb extensions, or RRFB, or it's a hybrid beacon. So it just kind of gives you a lot of different options to kind of look at. Along with that, the pace or the speed of that traffic as well. So what we do on a 30 mile an hour roadway and below versus a 40 mile an hour and above is a little bit different. So this is a great chart and a great graph to be able to kind of to peek through and kind of give you some good ideas. And again, just kind of reiterating what I walked you through, but just to give you an example here. So if you got a 35 mile an hour roadway and your vehicle traffic is anywhere from 9 to 15,000 and it's 3 lanes without a raised median, you can see there looks like 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and of those, the 3, 7, and 9 are what are recommended. So you have an option for the advanced yield to here, pedestrian signage and yields, crossbars, the RFB, and then of course that hybrid beacon as well. So depending on what your agency has for funding or what you want to plan for, those are some treatments that would be recommended from a Federal Highway Administration standpoint. So it's just nice, gives you a start. I know a lot of people always come to us and ask, well, we've got to figure out why. I don't want to just put one of these up every time we have a constituent ask for them. We've got to develop a certain set of criteria, and this is certainly a good graph to be able to defer to. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about these pedestrian crosswalk systems and what is available for you guys out here, okay? So the 3 major systems that we typically see from a low-cost standpoint are the RFB, the LED enhanced blinker sign, or our always fail-safe old standby, if you will, the 12-inch circular beacon. So within the past year or so, the MUTCD had the interim approval for the RFB, and then it was rescinded and put out to the public. So the RFB is certainly something that is now on the MUTCD approval list, and there's specifications for it. Some of the major impactful areas that they improved on were the flash pattern from the RFB. Right now, it's a wig-wag plus simultaneous, the WW plus S. And then it's you've seen this before too, but there's some different flash patterns that were involved with it, and they've kind of removed that from the equation. So everything that's being put out is that WW plus S. This is a great treatment for crosswalks. If you have power at a location, that's certainly something that we can utilize. Solar powered is probably our most common setup. And then we also have a lighting system that would power the RFB when it's on from a 240 volt standpoint. So if the lights were on at nighttime, that charges the battery for the system to operate during the day. And studies show here with the RFB, it's one of the most compliant systems out there. We've seen some studies as high as 90%. So it's a pretty effective system. So the blinker sign, which is kind of shown here with the LEDs in the border. So that's really the difference, is the light bar versus the LEDs in the border of the sign. This is also MUTCD compliant, and it flashes within their accordance. And this is also great for intersections with very high pedestrian volume. And we'll get into it in a few other slides here too, but there's several other methods for activating these signs. Generally, having them flash 24/7 is not ideal. And I know here in Wisconsin, that's kind of frowned upon as well from a DOT standpoint. So we only want to make these systems flash when there's actually pedestrian present, so that motorists don't become numb to those systems and just completely ignore them. So only when there's somebody in that crosswalk, we want that system to be activated. And we've seen studies as high as 53% compliance for motorists from this type of product as well. So one thing neat about the blinker sign is just looking from a 30-inch sign standpoint, you're getting a lot more square footage of illumination too, as opposed to the RFB. So that's one very unique thing. These all use high watt Luxian LEDs. You can see here on the back of the sign, all of our wiring is enclosed as well. And then we use, of course, a 3M diamond grade sheeting with a very high fluorescent diamond grade setup as well. And then here we have the beacons. These, of course, are ITE compliant. We have different options. 12-volt options are available. And this is, a really great product here for school zones. I'm sure many of you have these existing in your areas already. Right now, there are 12 inches is really what is required and warranted. There used to be 8-inch, and folks have kind of gone away from that. The idea is that if we want to be increase safety and visibility, we want to use something a little bit lighter, or excuse me, a little bit larger and brighter. And we have different setups for these too. We can have fully enclosed hoods or lenses. We can also have black setups, all yellow setups. We certainly do these in red as well for non-crosswalk applications. So we'll talk a little bit about activations. Our most standard is our Bulldog. So this system here in Wisconsin does not have an LED flashing in the middle. So you'll see that on a lot of projects, no LED, just for WisDOT's requirements. And then there's a new product out, the Inx. It's an accessible and audible push button that we can use for crosswalks as well, for the visually impaired. We can hardwire a push button bollard, as you see there in the middle, or we can also do this wirelessly as well. So if you don't have power, or if you have utilities under the roadway, we can set this type of system up with a wireless radio in the base to communicate with the crosswalk as well. So here is that Inx push button I just noted from a little bit of new technology. So with our current pandemic, that really forced a lot of manufacturers to kind of rethink some products, and they've come up with this touchless option. So there's a little radar head in these push buttons that would allow you to be within about 3 inches to be able to activate this system. And there's also a configurable service app that will allow you to be able to get status, be able to activate that system, just to be able to, continue moving and increase mobility throughout those intersections with, again, anybody that has any visual impairments. Yet another activation is our thermal detection. So this is a passive activation. It uses your heat signatures from humans to be able to detect and to activate the system. So there's different ways to configure. You can do that by Wi-Fi, and it's really neat because you're able to see in total darkness. You don't need any lighting to be able to show what's in that crosswalk to be picked up by the sensors. The sun and the shade, the rain, shadows don't affect any of that activation either. So this is very, very user-friendly, but virtually no false calls as well. And you can see here just kind of some of that technology. So there's the presence. It also allow you to detect directionality. So if you're going out of the zone, it's not triggering the system to flash again for another 20 seconds. It understands that you're leaving that specific zone and doesn't again trigger that. And you can see here in the middle, this image is just showing somebody configuring the zone, so you can kind of get a specific look of what the camera is seeing. And then we have our activation, our wireless bollards. So these are done infrared. You can kind of see there on the image on the right, it shows just a little infrared beam, but that's essentially how it works. So there's an A and a B sensor within those lenses. And so it does pick up directionality. So if A is hit first and then B, it won't trigger. But if B is hit first and then A, and vice versa, from either side of the roadway would trigger the system. So there's these work completely wireless as well, or you can have these hardwired back into the cabinet at the pole as well. So depending on what, again, kind of utilities you have at that location, that might be a more cost-effective method as well. So what's really neat about TAPCO is that we have several different options from a solar standpoint, from an AC standpoint, and I had mentioned earlier here that streetlight power. So we understand that one size doesn't fit all. So we're not going to give a 55-watt solar package to Arizona or Florida and give you that same package, maybe in the UP. We understand there's different sun levels and solar capacity. So we really try and specifically fit the system to what you are applying it to. Whether we have a FLIR infrared system, a thermal detection, or we have a push button, those power consumption numbers are different as well. So it just varies specifics. But we have anywhere from a 13 watt to our 20 watt self-enclosed systems. And then you can see from our 26 all the way up to our 85 watt, the solar panel and the cabinet are separate. So a little bit more compact systems. You can see the 20 watt and the 13 watt can go on a little bit smaller poles, whether that's 2x2s or the 2 3/8 round. And then most of our other ones, 26 watt and up, would generally go on like a 4.5 inch type 1 signal pole. We'll talk about a few enhancements. So one of our newer products is called our Safe Walk. We've got a handful of these here in Wisconsin as well. So we can let you folks know where those are at if you're interested and want to take a look at how they work and function. But this is something that we've done where we have some low light conditions where there's maybe no street light. There's a mid-block crossing. We want to not just alert the motorist with the light bars in an RFB situation or a blinker sign or a beacon, but we really want to illuminate that pedestrian that would be crossing in that crosswalk. So best and ideal options are for our 2-lane roadways. We can do some, if there's a median, we can kind of put some additional safe walks to be able to get each side of a roadway. But again, generally two-lane roadways are ideal for this type of setup. Our CVI has really been gaining traction. If you folks aren't aware, there is a autonomous corridor in Madison along Park Street that goes from the Beltline up to the university. And we've been working in tandem with the university and the city, working on the roadside units and our connected vehicle interface. So this is a really unique product that can be applied to not just pedestrian safety systems, but also your wrong ways, your overheights, your high water systems, whatever the case may be. And this unit here would communicate with a crosswalk and with an autonomous vehicle with in-car notifications that there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, or you're nearing a high water system, or an overheight detection. So it gives you that in-vehicle notification if your car is equipped with it. And right now there's competing technologies from dedicated short-range radio, the DSRC, or the 5G technology. Our system would adapt to either one of those. So no matter what way the industry goes, we have a product that can be utilized. We see a lot of people that are implementing this currently, just in the fact that they can get it out there, and once the technology or catches up, basically the vehicles catch up, you have a system in place already. So again, these can be upgraded. This is something that can be fit into the cabinet. A roadside unit, if that is what you guys have in the community, would be able to easily communicate with that CVI, and then of course with that crosswalk. So you can kind of see on that streetlight pole, that is your roadside unit, and then within that cabinet at the crossing, there would be that connected vehicle interface that communicates the two. So it integrates to any local ATMS system as well. So it provides a lot of those traffic engineers with that insight as well. Here gives you a little bit better idea of what a roadside unit looks like. So you can kind of see the different antennas, the GPS location, the Wi-Fi, the cellular data, and then if you have Ethernet too, you can direct connect to these systems as well. If you want to, we have some videos. I don't have any here today to show you, but we do have some YouTube videos that you can kind of see how the system will interacts and plays out. But you can kind of see here, just to take you through it, a pedestrian triggers that system, whether it's a push button or any of those other passive activations. That system then communicates to the roadside unit. That roadside unit, and again, this is all wireless, transmits that message to the vehicle. And that vehicle message can be anywhere, pedestrian and crosswalk 500 feet ahead, etc. So that's the importance of it. It allows you to be able to give that advance notice to motorists that there's somebody in that crosswalk. Okay. And different vehicles have different setups. I know Cadillac has a system, Tesla has a system, whether it's in a rearview mirror or any other kind of onboard unit. All of those would be able to communicate to a driver, letting them know and giving them that alert. So here, the last one, we had that in the rearview mirror. Here's another dashboard alert on certain vehicles. Okay. And from an enhancement standpoint, BlinkLink software is our over-the-air system. So you can kind of see here on the right, there's a high water system, for instance, an overheight or a low clearance system. You have your school system, and maybe you have a wrong way system. So BlinkLink allows you to be able to pull all of those types of systems into one cloud-based management software. So any traffic engineer, literally from anywhere in the country, would be able to log on to their secure site and see all of their systems. You can see diagnostics from a solar standpoint, the battery standpoint, if there's an outage. So it just really gives you the flexibility and capability to monitor all those systems and not necessarily have to have somebody go out there, 5 times a year, 6 times a year, whatever it may be, 1 or 2 folks to check on these systems. You're able to do that from, the comfort of your home or your office. Certainly here with the wintertime, keeping folks off the roadway and safe from a municipality standpoint is always ideal. So if you can kind of eliminate that from the equation, that is certainly something that to consider. And we interface all of this with the advanced IWS systems. I know we have some down at the DOT office in downtown Milwaukee, but it's nice to be able to tie this all back in to folks that can just kind of monitor this stuff and make sure everything's working smoothly. So it gives you the ability to kind of prioritize and allocate those resources using that data at your fingertips. So this is usually used in school crossings for the most part, is where we would generally see them. But this is our time clock software. So this is something that you can certainly manually schedule inside the cabinet as well. So that retrofit time clock controller would simply go into a cabinet and allow you to be able to connect with cellular and the modem to BlinkLink to be able to monitor and change all of those schedules as well. So another great application for BlinkLink. And lastly, I know we talked about a little bit at the front end, just with some of the technology and the white paper results, our blinker radar. So these are all METCD compliant. There's a variety of different sizes, all the way from 11-inch all the way up to an 18-inch character height. You can also have these full matrix, or you can just generally have the numerical output to motors as well. So there's different activation periods as well. So it kind of functions on that time clock setup as well. So I'll leave this one up for a little bit. This is a really great page. If you guys want to jot this down, we can certainly get this to you after the fact as well. But there's a lot of great resources for you guys to kind of take a peek at. Like I mentioned earlier on that chart from FHWA, we can get that out to you folks as well. If that's something you haven't seen and would like to look a little bit more into, we can certainly pass that information along. In parting, I just want to let you guys know that to consider Kapur, consider us as resources. So I always approach each and every day as an extension of your communities, and to be able to just give you the resources and the tools that you guys need to do your job a little bit easier. So even if it's just a little bit, then I feel I've done a good job. So again, consider us a resource. If we can provide information, we'd love to do that. You know, we always take a look here internally and see how we can make our community safer. You know, we're driving it, our families are driving it, so we want to make sure we're part of that solution in aiding in any way possible for you guys. So with that, again, I thank you for your time. I know we brushed through a lot of that stuff relatively quickly, so if there's any additional information that I can provide for you, I'd love to be able to have that opportunity. Okay, and then I assume we'll take some questions here at the end, so if anybody has any, please let us know. Thank you. Safe travels.
We hope you will join us again in a few weeks for the next installment of Kapur's Smart Cities webinar series. In our first 3 Smart Cities webinars, we have introduced you to several unique and specific applications of sensors for collecting and using data to make certain elements of your community's infrastructure smart. In webinar 1, we showed how sensors are used throughout the water treatment process at the Metropolitan Milwaukee Sewage District, as well as in the manufacturing of milorganite as an end product of their treatment. In webinar 2, you learned about the use of sensors to make buildings more energy efficient. If you are building a new facility, or if you have existing buildings of various vintage, there are ways to use current sensors, or to add additional sensors which can make your buildings operate better and more efficiently. In webinar 3, we focused in on the use of the latest technologies for pedestrian safety improvement. Whether it is LED-enhanced signs, pedestrian detection beacons, or connected vehicle interfaces, new technologies are emerging that your community can use to improve pedestrian safety. In our upcoming webinar 4, we will introduce you to an organization that is working to help communities operate more efficiently while reducing operating costs and improving quality of life. They offer smart city solutions in an array of areas that impact your residents and visitors to your community, including parking, lighting, water, and the environment. This turnkey solution collects more information more efficiently, helping you to turn insights into more proactive and informed decisions. We will learn about an end-to-end solution that can deliver data safely, securely, and in real time, not only capturing infrastructure value, but also maximizing that value across departments to help leaders deliver optimal operational, financial, and social outcomes. We will hear how their parking solution was implemented in Columbus, Ohio, a winner of the U.S. DOT's first ever Smart City Challenge, and additionally how they demonstrated a number of other use cases, including bus stops, loading zones, curbside management, and air quality monitoring. We look forward to having you join us for the next program in the Kapur Smart Cities webinar series.